Today, we're talking about the importance of emotional and generational healing for spiritual growth. And I am so excited for this episode, as today's guest is a woman that I've known for a number of years now through NLP training circles. And I've worked closely with her over the last couple of years with more spiritually based modalities. And I'm so inspired by the depth of knowledge and experience this phenomenal lady brings to her clients. Jo-anne Cain is a specialist master coach and therapist who helps people overcome stress and anxiety, depression, grief, loss, trauma, PTSD, and healing generational trauma. Jo-anne is an internationally accredited master in NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis. She has a diploma in clinical hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. She's a facilitator of quantum and universal consciousness. She also, lady of many talents, has a diploma in community welfare, specialising in counselling, and a Bachelor of Social Work. Wow. Welcome to the coaching circle, Jo-anne Cain.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've been really looking forward to this, so I really appreciate the offer. And thank you for reading through that list because it's a good reminder.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jo-anne, I'm always blown away because you are a lady who's just, even before you started your business, was always in that sort of, helping and supporting others and community. And you've just continued to learn and delve deep into your own growth, but also in, the tools and specializing in helping people in the ways that, I've just mentioned. But I would love to know, Jo, what led you to start your business? And why is what you do so important to you?
Well, I fell into the NLP training in 2016, came across it coincidentally on Facebook. And just I'd been searching for a long, long time for something to use one-on-one with people to help them heal. The social work degree was great, but it's very general, and it was more about community-based stuff, which is very useful, but it wasn't giving me a lot of the one-to-one stuff. So when I found NLP at practitioner training, it was straight up, oh, this is it. I found it. I've been looking and looking. I've done a lot of other modalities that are great to have in the toolbox, but this was it. So I did practitioner in 2016 and master prac in 2017, and then went, right, I've got to share this with people, as in work with people. So yeah, started my business in 2017. I was still working full time at the time, so it was a weekend gig, and yeah, did it part time right up until the beginning of 2020.
Yeah,
We
wow.
went full time with it. So yeah,
That's incredible, Jo. So what was your full-time job at that time when you started
at,
learning?
yeah, at that point I was working for a homeless service in the Riverland. So
Yes.
very different type of client, and quite rewarding work, but very full on. I was quite burnt out when I finished that job in August 2019, needed a break from it. The other thing was all of these skills I had, the social work skills were the ones I used in that role. The NLP ones, not so much. Yes, I could use the language. I think with a couple of clients, I even did a little bit of submodalities work, but it was very limited, and I felt that I wasn't able to use my skills fully. So yeah, that was one of the reasons, and a whole lot of reasons for going into business. Thinking
Yeah.
I'm going to have freedom, which is a bit of a giggle.
Yeah.
You think you're going to be freer if you work yourself.
Well, it's different type of freedom, right?
Yes, it's flexibility. It's flexibility. Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
as well, like having that freedom, like you said, because I know, like when I was working, when I first learned NLP and then I left my job in accounting and then, I went into my business and then went, holy crap, I'm not making the money I thought I was going to make. I need to get a job. And, I was doing some money coaching. And the thing though that I found really frustrating in helping people in those kind of bigger organization is just like what you said, you can't really use the tools that you have to help them at the level that they need help with.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you find that as a bit of a frustration that you knew that the people you were helping with, it was like limited, like they needed so much more than what was available to them?
Yeah, and it was twofold. well, three parts. Yes, they needed a lot more than what's available because our mental health system is way underfunded and understaffed and all the rest of it. And that's not a criticism of the people in it. That's just an acknowledgement of it. I wasn't really allowed to use those tools because it wasn't part of our brief. So you had to stick within your government and your funding guidelines of what you're allowed to do. But the other thing is a lot of those people were in survival mode. Most of them were. They're in survival mode and really not at a point where you could do the intense work we can do in a breakthrough or a program with people. So it was very basic. And like I said, they're in survival mode. So they weren't in a space to start delving within and owning a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
So they needed something different, which I had with the social work skills, but I felt a bit limited and wanted to be able to use the other tools.
Do more. And I think that's a really good point, Jo, that you've just said there, is that, you know, when we have tools like NLP and timeline therapy and hypnosis, and, you know, I know you've got a range of other modalities in your toolkit as well, that, you know, you feel like, oh, I could help everyone. But the truth is not everybody is at that point ready, because if someone's in survival mode, you know, they're probably not ready to do a lot of self-reflection if they don't have somewhere to live or food on their table, or, you know, can't pay their bills or whatever else.
In a tent on the riverbank. And, you know,
So, I mean, it is really important that there are those basic, I guess, services available that can help people at least get beyond that level of survival. And then, of course, then you get, you know, as people move on, they have resources to do better, then, you know, then there's further work that can be done, right? But I think, you know, that's the thing about the flexibility in business, isn't it? It's just that you get to choose who you work with and how you help them, and that it's the flexibility around doing stuff around your own values, morals, ethics, you know, beliefs.
Yes. And, you know, you can choose your niche client, but then work with anyone who turns up, and you can work in the areas you love, which is another thing I loved about the NLP training. I don't think anyone that I've done any NLP training with over the years works like me.
Yes.
We're all so different. It's so versatile that you can go into so many different areas with it.
Oh, 100%. I'm so glad you said that, Jo, as well, because, you know, this is one of the things that I'm often saying to people, because, you know, often when people come into the coaching world or the NLP world, they're like, oh my God, everyone knows this. There's so much competition. And it's like, no, there's not, right? Like, the competition is what people, your ideal clients, are already spending their money on. Because if you go out in the general population, what percentage of people in the general population do you think are accessing coaching or NLP skills? Or, you know, like, it would be very small.
It would be lucky if it's 10%, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but on that, Jo, tell us, you know, a bit about how you help people, and, you know, because like you said, and I 100% agree, there's no one else I know who works like you do. So tell us a bit about how you help people.
Okay, so I work from a program base. So it's either a package of a minimum of 4 sessions, or what I now call my Soul Harmony Emotional Wellness Program, which I renamed from the Personal Breakthrough, which is the package we're taught in NLP, because I've added so much to it. So it's very much based on, it's the structure of the Personal Breakthrough, but then I'll add the clinical hypnotherapy. I might add a quantum session. I might add different forms of healing. I've got frequency devices I use. There's a whole lot of other that's added to it. And why I like the program and the intense work is that someone comes in with anxiety, I'll assess their anxiety levels. They might be quite high. And then we start with some tasking, and then I'll do a 5-6 hour day with them to start with, and really get stuck into clearing those negative emotions and limiting beliefs. And as you know, we're working with the unconscious, and there's an unconscious cause of the anxiety, the depression, all of these things. Even with grief and loss, when people come and they're grieving a particular situation or person, there's the generational stuff behind it. There's all the other old memories behind that as well. So, yeah, I just continue working with people until the problem's gone. Sometimes it's around 15 hours, depending on how how complex the problem is, because when you start getting into mental health, it can get quite complex and people need a lot of care. So yeah, it's an ongoing program, and it's designed, it's got that structure, but it's flexible and it flows to what people need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would love to know, because, yeah, like I said, you go very deep. Your program is much longer than the normal sort of breakthrough that people do through NLP training. You bring in a lot of those tools, and, you're very much into helping people that have got like these complex things, right? Like the
Yes.
anxiety, the PTSD, the grief,
Yes.
the loss, those kinds of things. So do you mind sharing, Jo, like, how did that become your focus? Why are you so passionate about helping people in that space?
Well, I I guess because anxiety was a thing for me, probably 30 years ago, going through some family stuff. Um, so that was sort of a love for me. I just always wanted to feel better and cope with stress. I just always wanted to feel better, and I found this modality that I don't get anxious anymore. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And with my clients, I'll test them when they come in, and they can be in the severe or extremely severe range. And by the time they walk out the door, they're in the normal range and they feel great. The other thing I think with the grief and loss, and a few years ago, I worked for a service called Standby Response Service, with which we came in after a suicide to support communities and sporting groups and whoever needed it. The grief side of it, when I was 14 months old, my 5-year-old sister passed away suddenly. So I grew up in a house where there were anniversaries, there were grief. It was very openly spoken about. We had photos of her. We knew what happened. Mum and Dad would talk about her. And I also noticed the sadness at times. It was a really interesting way of showing me that we all think our childhood is the same as everybody else's, because I was about 10 years old, and our school teacher took us to the local cemetery with the idea of researching historical graves, and we had a bit of a competition to who could find the oldest one. And one of my friends came running up to me, and she'd found my sister's grave and she put flowers on it. She was really excited to tell me. And that's when I realised this isn't normal. Okay, doesn't everybody have a sibling who's passed away? And there was one other person in the class. So I grew up in that, and throughout life have experienced grief, obviously myself, and witnessed friends, family, other people that go through losing someone and through grief.
Yeah.
And I don't think as a society we handle grief well. I think often people really carry it, and it becomes such a burden and so gut-wrenching. And I know through this work it doesn't have to be like that, that it can be, you can move through that. Obviously there's going to be moving through the emotions, but it can be, I don't know if easy is the right word, but it can be more peaceful, and you can find peace within a reasonably short period of time. So both of those things, I think, from what I experienced in life and how I know, I think I've had 5, 6 breakthroughs, I've lost count.
Yeah.
Those layers of healing. Now when something difficult happens in my life, I notice how much easier it is to move through it, to handle the emotions and to cope. So it was personal experience, and the differences in me I noticed that made me want to share this with other people.
Yeah, I love that so much, so, because I think, this is one of the things that I know, like when you get to know a lot of coaches, and like you said, this is why everyone does something different, is because usually that passion to want to help others comes from experiences that you've overcome and the healing that you've experienced for yourself. And I know this is exactly was for me as well. And the moment that you realize that you can move past your own pain, you think, oh my God, if I can get out of that, I need to help other people do that too. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
But I totally agree with you around the whole thing around grief. And I think that it's really interesting to me, because I'm not sure, I haven't experienced a lot of grief or death in my family, apart from people who have generally been, a lot older. but I've always been okay with that. I feel like it's always, in my family, it's been more of a, this is part of life, and that
Yeah,
happens, and I'm okay with that. And this is the such fascinating thing for me, is that it's the one thing we can all be guaranteed of, is that at
exactly.
some point we will pass away.
Yes,
Yet there's a lot of conditioning, and more so in different cultures and different areas, where people get these ideas that if someone dies, you'll never get over it, that you can never be at peace about that, that you could never, think about that in any kind of positive, let alone neutral light.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what do you think on that, Jo? What do you think is the most powerful reframe when we talk about grief and loss? Someone's life has finished. What do you think is the most powerful reframe that you use or think about that helps with that sort of acceptance of the
Yeah.
passing?
I'm not sure if it's a reframe, but what I often say to people that come to me around grief is, look, what you've been through, let's not minimize that.
Mm,
You've been through a really difficult time. You've lost someone that you loved with all of your heart. But
mm,
instead of feeling that gut-wrenching pain when you think of them, what if you could think of them with peace or love or joy or a smile because you
mm,
remember a happy memory or something funny they did?
yes.
What if you could remember them in that positive way?
Mm.
Most people are open to that.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important, because I always remember hearing this one thing once that completely shifted things for me. And that was, if you were to get in touch with that part within yourself that represents this person that has passed, and you ask them, do they want you to continue grieving or to be sad? What do they say?
Yeah.
And when you think about it that from that perspective, the person who's passed doesn't want you to be grieving or sad or suffering in any way, right?
Not at all. And often I find that person will sometimes come through in timeline therapy and they'll go,
Mm,
oh, they're here. Like, okay, what if I give you some time to have a chat? Would you like that? Oh, yes, please. And
mm,
I'll have a chat and come back with the exact same thing. That they're
mm.
telling me to be happy, that they're okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful. That is so powerful.
Yeah.
Um, I I guess, and I think you've sort of mentioned this a little bit, Jo, but with all the work that you do, whether it be with grief or trauma or, depression, anxiety, stress, all those things, what do you think is your key strategy that gets best results? Or maybe it's a particular modality, but what's your go-to?
Timeline therapy, without a
Timeline
doubt.
therapy.
I,
Yeah.
I wouldn't like anyone to say to me that's the only thing you can use, because I love the other things and they complement each other.
Yeah.
But it is the quickest, simplest, most powerful modality to shift something that's weighing someone down.
Mm.
Yeah, by far and away, timeline therapy. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
I'd have to agree with that, because, like you, I've got a few other modalities and things, but that is the core modality I use, and everything else kind of complements that. And I guess NLP 100% complements it, because it's
yes,
understanding the language and all those kinds of things as well,
yes.
that go with that. But yeah, it is. It's incredible, isn't it? Like the results. Could you perhaps and this might be putting you on the spot, but is there like a standout sort of result that comes to mind when you think about clients that you've worked with, and how that's really helped them shift?
I think the ones that show the most, and I'm sure I'll think of someone after we finish today and go, why
Yeah.
didn't I talk about them? I use an assessment called DASS, Depression, Anxiety, Stress Score. And I can picture a young mum who came in around anxiety and was in the extremely severe range. Now, I can't diagnose anxiety or depression. I explain to people, but we use this assessment so we've got a starting point. We know
Mm,
where you were, because in 2 months' time, I promise you're going to find it hard to remember how bad you felt. And
yeah.
often when you read back through the notes, they'll say, I didn't say that. Did I say that? You've got the wrong folder. No, I haven't. You said that. Oh, I was in a bad way, wasn't I? Yes, you were. Um,
Mm,
But she ended up within the normal range in a couple of months. And I said to her, so do you feel you've got value for money? Because paying for it was a big deal for her. She really put a lot of effort into paying for it. And she said, oh, I would have sold my house to get this.
Wow.
Just that I feel so good that I would happily have sold and it was a new house. They hadn't had it very long. I would have sold my house to get this result.
Yeah.
So just that, that anxiety being gone.
That is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it was for her, just amazing. And it's a lot with the young mums. There's a lot of pressure on young mums these days. They get very anxious, a lot of self-worth stuff. And to have them go out the door without that anxiety, good self-worth, what I love about that is their kids are growing up in a better environment.
Yes.
Their family, there's a better vibration in the home. She's calmer. She's dealing with things better. She's modeling to these kids how you handle stress. Just the flow on. I just love it. Yeah.
That is 100% agree, Jo-anne, with that, because I know, I can't remember where I heard this, but it was recently where it might have even been Jordan Peterson, actually, because I've been consuming a lot of his content recently, but he was saying, like, the number one indicator or determiner of children growing up happy and healthy is that their mother is happy and healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is so important. And I think you're exactly right. The increased amounts of stress and anxiety people have, like with just how busy things are, but also the amount of negative messaging that people are bombarded with every day.
Yes.
Through the mainstream media and everything else is, I tuned out to that stuff quite some time ago.
Yes. Yes. It's just, I sort of, if I see it now, it's observing. Oh my goodness, look at this. What people, like you say, they're being bombarded with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, amazing, Jo. Like, I think, and I think I'm so glad that you're here sharing this stuff, because I think, like you were saying, people would, like your client was saying, she would sell a house to get that result, right? Like, people don't realize just how available getting this kind of help is. And, and I think this is why referrals are so important, because it's really hard to explain to someone just what a difference will, working and doing things like timeline therapy will make to them. And I know, even yesterday I was wrapping up a breakthrough with a client, and we're doing all the tests of how you're feeling compared to when you first come in. And he said, wow, he goes, and like all of this stuff had happened. He dropped in, just had all these like huge contracts drop in. That takes him through till middle of next year, new relationship starting, all this kind of stuff. And he said, when my mate told me about this, because it was another friend that I'd worked with, he goes, when my mate was telling me about this, he goes, I don't know how this is going to work. Like, it all sounds a bit weird, but I'm kind of I'll just give anything a go, right? But it was because someone he knew that he trusted, who'd been through that experience and said, you've got to go and do it.
Yes.
Made all the difference for him coming in and then getting that result for himself. And so, I think the more that people can share about the kinds of results that they're getting and working with their clients, the better it is for everyone. Because, I hate to think that there's people out there who need the help and could pay for the help, even if it's a challenge, yet they're not sure that it's going to work for them, or that they can even get rid of that problem.
Yeah, I'm out there to bust that myth. And you used the words before with grief, but people say it with anxiety and depression as well, and trauma. You'll never get over it. I don't even know what that means. When you tell someone who's lost someone that they'll never get over it, it's not helpful. It implants that. They believe it. And it's what society teaches. And you and I have seen through results that you can heal from these things.
Yeah.
So, that's a myth I'd like to bust, because I think a lot of people, especially in my role, they'll say they've tried counselling, they've tried so many things and nothing's worked, that they lose heart and don't think, well, why do this? It'll just be like everybody else, everything else that they've done.
Yeah. And it's really not. So, amazing work, Jo. What I'd love to know now is just kind of moving in, because I know a lot of other, coaches and practitioners and therapists listen to this podcast, and they're all
Mhm.
in different stages of business themselves. And, one of the things that I really love sharing and talking with other coaches is that, when people are starting out, well, all through business, really, there's challenges, right? Whatever level you're at. But often all we see is the positive experiences on social media, and it looks like everyone's just living their best life and whatever else. But there are challenges that come up in business, and for you, Jo, what do you think has been one of the most challenging things in business, and how have you dealt with it?
Okay, there's two things. The first thing is going into business, being good at what you do and thinking that's all you need to know.
Yeah, the good old
It's
job
about
mentality.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's about 20-25% of what you need to know. There's all the other stuff to learn. So it's great having you as a coach. It's like great networking with people that run business, because you've got a whole lot more to learn. So that was number one hurdle. Number two hurdle was that I went full time with my business in January 2020. Um,
Mm,
in what was at that time what we thought was a fairly normal world, and 2 months later everything was tipped on its head. We had to
yes.
switch to online. It's been a real roller coaster of learning and pivoting, and that behavioral flexibility. Okay, all right, that doesn't fit anymore. What am I going to do differently here? So
Yeah.
it's being on your toes. It's learning business structure. It's learning about marketing and the structures and having things in place. And yeah, it's a huge learning curve. Having said that, even when it is tough, I have had well-meaning people say to me, "Oh, have you thought about getting a job?" And I've gone, "Well, I've got a job, and no, I couldn't go back to working for anyone else, even when business is tough. There's
Mm.
nothing else I want to do."
Yeah, yeah, and it is such a big shift, isn't it? And I think, that is thing, and that was me included, right? When I first learned, and I'm like, okay, I'm really good at coaching and training. This is going to be great. I'm going to go straight
Yep,
into it. And
yep,
but that's still that job mentality, isn't it? When we have that job
yes,
mentality, it's like all I've got to be good at is the thing that I do when I rock up at 9 and go home at 5, and then as long as I'm there in those hours and I do what they tell me I've got to do, and I get a paycheck at the end of the week, and happy days.
yes.
But
Because
yeah,
someone else is doing the marketing and the bookwork and the tax and everything
yeah,
else.
and the
Yeah,
systems and the processes and all
yeah,
that sort of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that is such a thing, and definitely. I personally, I think that's why so many businesses fail in that those short, like, the first 12 months, or even in the first 5 years sort of thing, is because people just don't get that mindset. And it is a huge neurology shift, right? And we know that through values, being able to, you're in a new environment. And so essentially, you have to be under some kind of stress for you to build out neurology that creates coping mechanisms for that new environment. So business, it's, yeah, if you're not doing sales and marketing, you're gonna be under a bit of stress, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you need to be disciplined too, because you might have there's a list of 15 or 20 things that need to be done for
Yeah.
this business to run. And there's
Yeah.
5 of them that you really aren't your favorite things to be doing. And
Yeah.
it's the Marissa Peer thing. Do what you don't want to do first, and just
Mm.
yeah, it's about being disciplined and getting them done. Otherwise, they can slide, and then that's not good for business either.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest shifts I had was when, I finally got it of like, okay, this isn't just the Tony Everard show, it's a business that pays Tony Everard. And
Yes.
so that business needs to have a marketing department and a sales department and an admin department and a delivery department. And all those departments need to have processes and systems and, routine about when they get done.
Yeah.
And I think that, that for me, I don't know about you, but that for me, what helped me shift my mindset about money in business as well. Because it's like when you first, when you're in a job, you just get money, it's just for you, right? And then you've got a business, and if someone pays you, you think, oh, wow, that might seem like a lot of money or whatever. But then when you run it through all the departments,
And they all take their bit. There's not much
yeah,
left sometimes, is there?
yeah, it's not like
Yeah.
that money's going straight in your pocket, and you're like,
Yeah.
hang on, they're not just paying me for my hours that I'm working, they're paying my business to operate so that it can afford to pay me.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But I think, and you've worked through that really well, Jo. And I think, you continue to do that. And I love that, like I'm a big fan of, as you know, I work with a lot of women predominantly in the coaching space who are 40 and over and, into their 50s and even into their 60s. And I think I've got a client that may be in her 70s now, but, in that sort of age group. And I think it's that, I'm really passionate about women understanding that they have so much to give and that they are so experienced and they are so knowledgeable and that they have got the ability to learn new things and do things like sales and marketing and websites and tech and those kinds of things. And, and I think like it's even thinking about all your life, even if you might have been working in a job, but you've probably been managing a household as well. And if people realize if you can do all those things that are quite complicated and complex, you can map it across into you can manage a business and you can learn how to do those things and do those things. Like, did you find that for that side of the business? I mean, I know sales and marketing, but for the tech side of things and, getting around social media and stuff like that, did you have to create a bit of a mindset shift for yourself in becoming the person, I guess, who did those things?
Yes, you have to, like for me, all I wanted to do was work with people, to just bring me the clients. But like you say, if you've not got some marketing happening, they're not going to find you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's about getting in the flow with that. And it's about, for me, blocking out time. So being a strong J in Myers-Briggs, like that structure. Mondays is admin day.
Yeah.
And I've got in there every Monday an hour of bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So that I keep up to date with my bookkeeping. Look, and I didn't think I was that great at bookkeeping. And I was chatting to my accountant the other day and she said, "You've got the cleanest books of all of my clients." I went, "Not me." Are you sure? Yeah. So it's just, for me, it's about that structure and a time to do. Mondays, schedule the social media because I'm still doing that myself, do the book work and just get that done every Monday. It's out the way.
Yeah.
And it's done. Yeah. And it is about, I don't know if I didn't learn to love it. I found that I loved doing some of that stuff. I think if you worked with clients, you couldn't possibly work with clients 38 hours a week.
No.
It gives some variety to the different skills and to the different things you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such an important point because like I often work with people, it's either like 90-minute or 2-hour sessions that I work with. Mm-hmm. But if I do, I certainly wouldn't even do 3 of those every day of the week, right? Like if you were doing 3, like I know, and talking to other people who are full-time coaching, because I'm training, I do have a bit of a different kind of structure. But even working with 3 clients a day, if you're doing that 4 days a week, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like that different. It's different than if you're just in your job and you're doing whatever the things and you're moving around. Like that time that you're super focused on that client for that 2 hours or, whatever it might be, I think it's almost like 1.5 times the amount of energy of doing regular tasks. Would you agree, Jo?
Oh, absolutely. And you need to be focused on them. You need to be emotionally available. Switched on, and you would do this. You're sitting there and your brain in the background is going a million miles an hour of what am I going to do here? What's the best thing here? Or noticing their words or things they've said or where you need to challenge, where you need to nurture. It's full on. You're probably 110%
focus.
110% focused on this person and their needs. So I'm similar to you. I would only schedule 2 clients a day.
Yeah.
Because I need that decent, and I always give myself a decent break in between. Even if that's just to sit in the sunshine with a cuppa and just process to get some notes down. But 3 a day, I think you'd end up burnt out if you did too much.
Yeah, especially in that sort of work. I mean, I know there's different practitioners and therapists who do different things, like, massage might be a bit different or,
exactly
all kinds of different things. But when you're doing that deep coaching therapy, Yeah.
And the trauma stuff, and you've got to
Yeah.
look after yourself doing that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important as well, is having that outside support. I know I've always got at least a couple of coaches that I can talk to about different things, but is that having, you know, I know there's some certain modalities that say you have to have supervision, which, you know, I think is valid in ways, but I think as long as you're getting help yourself, that you can download, that you can defrag, that you can, you know, talk out things,
Yes.
and it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I know there's technically what's called supervision, and people need to be qualified in giving supervision in some areas. I find what I get with you and the NLP groups I'm in is just as valuable and very similar. You just haven't got the label. That, you know, I'll have a tricky client and I can talk to you, or I can throw it in the NLP group, keeping everything confidential.
Yeah.
What do I do with this person? I'm thinking I do this, and people jump in with, oh, look, I had someone like that, or have you thought about this? And it to me, that's supervision.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling with someone, if I'm struggling with something personally that's impacting my work, or I've got a difficult client that's impacting me, then reaching out to someone there's always you're there, there's other people there that I can reach out to process it.
Well, because that's such a thing, isn't it? And it's being aware of yourself. And I always think, you know, the thing about when you're coaching and doing therapy and things like that, like, because of perception is projection, as you're helping someone, you're always having the healing and awarenesses yourself. Like, you know, I always say I get paid for my own therapy sometimes, because you're always going, well, that's I can relate to that. That's, you know, that's really good. But
there's a mirror.
But it's such a great tool, I guess, you know, to keep that. And the more that you grow and learn from those experiences, the more you help people at a deeper level as well.
And yes, and I use the modalities probably nearly every day with myself. Something will pop up, and even if it's just around awareness and something coming into my awareness and being aware of a trigger. Oh, let's get rid of that. You know, that's not helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's such an important thing, Jo, as well, that point you're making there, because, you know, I always say it's a bit like, you know, going to the gym or having a PT. You don't do 1 6-week challenge at the gym and then go, I'm now fit forever.
Yes.
It's like, it's learning these tools so that you can practice them on a daily basis, because life keeps happening. People, you know, we have different situations that we've never been before. We have people in our environment or our families who suddenly do things or have experiences that we've never experienced before. And it's that ongoing, oh, okay, I've got to, I guess it's not, what am I trying to say? It's like these tools are really, how do you work with yourself on a daily basis, not just like oh, I've got to fix something, right?
It's a way of life, isn't it? It's,
yeah.
You know, I say to people, well, if you wanted to run in the New York Marathon, you wouldn't do one session with a trainer.
Yeah.
It would be ongoing. If you want to be a healthier weight, you don't just eat healthy for one day. You change your lifestyle. And that's what you and I have done, and people that do NLP, you integrate it. It becomes a way of thinking. We think differently. Can look a bit weird to people sometimes, but we do think and see the world differently and process things differently. And it has, for me, become a way of life. I hate to think where I'd be without it. It just is just something I use all the time.
Yeah. And I think on that as well, because sometimes people are like, oh, you know, these NLP things and whatever else. Like, I think the important thing for people to know is that, like, the NLP is just a label for a group of techniques of how you best use your own mind.
Yeah.
That's it, really, isn't it? Essentially. And that's all we're doing when we're working with people. I always say that, I'm just guiding you through a process for you to learn how to access and process things in your own mind.
To get to know yourself, the awareness, to really, really know yourself.
Yeah. So good. So, Jo, I know this time is just flying in this.
It has.
I love speaking with you. No, it's all good. It's all good. But I would love to know, you know, for you, what do you think is the most rewarding part of having your business?
The relief that people get. Just getting those results. I remember one lady, and it was a year or so ago, who we cleared sadness. Now, she came to me having been diagnosed with depression.
Mm-hmm.
When we explored it, it was actually long-term grief. And we cleared sadness, and we got to the end and she burst into tears. And I went, "Ooh, wonder if I've missed something." So I just said, "Oh, what's that? What's that about?" And she said, "That's relief." And I went, "That's why I do what I do." The absolute relief of letting go, the smiles at the end, the feedback that you get from people of, like the lady that would have sold her house to get it, the results. Yeah.
Yeah. It is, it's such, I always feel like that, Jo, like it's such a gift, like it's such an honored role to be able to play in people's lives. Like, do you ever sort of go, like, I don't know what you thought, when you're little and you're at school and they go, "What do you want to be when you grow up?"
Oh, an air hostess I wanted to be.
Oh, you want to be an air hostess? Well, I guess you're like a bit of an air hostess in another
in a different realm. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to work in a bank, and I did that for about 10 years, but never in my wildest dreams did I think that this would be a job.
No.
Like that I could get to sit and talk to people and really help them change their lives, like it's incredible.
It's such a privilege, isn't it? That people, I say that to people, it's such a privilege that you've trusted me, to come in and be fine. I'm asking people with anxiety to step through my door and talk to someone they've never met before.
Yeah.
About stuff they feel vulnerable about. And when they choose to do that, it's such an honor.
Yeah. And thank you, Jo, for being that person who people can do, because I know you're such a beautiful lady, and I always enjoy, spending time with you and our conversations. And, I know that you are a gift to your clients, that they get to find someone that they can sit and feel that level of trust and support and really heal through whatever, issues that they've had and come out the other side. So, really thank you for everything that you do. It's always inspiring.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. So finally, Jo, what I would love to know, well, before actually I get to that thing, because there's one question I always like to ask people, but do you have any, like, you've got some resources, where's the best way people can find you or connect with you?
Facebook's a good one. I post on Facebook nearly every day, and I have a Facebook group. So if they and you'll probably put the links there.
Yeah, all the links will be in the show notes.
Yeah, I do a little bit on Instagram, not as much. My website's great. They can sign up for my newsletter there.
And what's your website again? It's
www.soulessencetlc.com.au.
Beautiful. And that will be in the show notes. So definitely go and check it out. Good.
Yes.
And there's some resources there. People can have, book in for a call with you.
They can book in. So I do a 45-minute discovery call, which is a bit longer than some people. What I find though, with the complex clients I work with, they need time.
Yeah.
They're not going to get into a position of trust and bare their soul in 15 minutes. So I allow 45. So that's free. Also for this show, and I'm doing a blog soon that I'm putting it in that, I've got a PDF on techniques to use when we're stressed. And this is really simple, easy things that people can do.
Beautiful.
So at the moment, if people sign up for my newsletter, or if they're already signed up and they want this PDF, just flick me a message and I will send it to them.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds amazing, Jo. Thank you.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
And definitely all that will be in the show notes. So go and check those out and get in touch with Jo, or, definitely forward her details on to anyone that that, is suffering with anxiety, stress, grief, trauma, PTSD. Jo-Anne is the person to be able to help them. And so the final question, Jo, is what do you do for fun?
Oh, we haven't talked about the spirituality yet. Do we want to quickly talk about that side?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yes. I guess this comes from my experience too, because I know about 30 years ago, I started my spiritual journey. I was a bit of a late bloomer, and I was searching for spiritual teachers, and the universe kept giving me healers, and I kept going, no, it's nothing. I'm fine, freaked out, insecure, neurotic and emotional. I'm fine. I don't need healing. And then I met a lady who was quite spiritual, and she said, I recommend you do this weekend workshop. So I went along and did that, not knowing it was healing. And massive breakthrough, needed support for the week afterwards because I had this big reaction to it all. So I guess what's coming across my field at the moment is a lot of people that come to me because I've got this spiritual aspect, if that's what they're looking for.
Yes.
And they're just wanting all the love and light, and they're just wanting all the spiritual, and they're wanting the spiritual growth. And so, well, a big part of spiritual growth is healing your stuff. It's going within, it's looking at yourself, identifying those aspects that need healing, embracing the light and the shadow, because a lot of people don't want to look at their shadow. And I've come to know my shadow, and I quite like it. We need our shadow side. You know, that shadow side shows you what needs healing. If you need to put some boundaries in place and be a bit feisty or a bit tough and stand up for yourself, that's not your love and light that does that. That's your shadow that does that. So get to know your shadow side. It's really important. So there's a term that this is very much what I was doing, the emotional avoidance, but it's called spiritual bypassing. When people just get into, I don't need to heal, I don't need to face any of that stuff, I'm going to bury that deep down, where your unconscious gets a bit clogged up with all of that stuff if you just keep burying it. So if people are interested in spiritual growth, that's what I recommend, is that, and often those burying that stuff then shows up as anxiety or depression and emotional issues. So just something I wanted to pop in there for people that just to think about.
I'm so glad that you added that, Jo, because I am a big believer in that as well, and I've seen a lot of that, and I'm all for spirituality, and you know that there's a lot of spiritual practices that I have, you know, and you do, and all those kinds of things. But I think the big thing that people got to realize is that yes, you can have a spiritual practice, but you're a human on the physical plane, and while you're on the physical plane, you need to be able to heal and resolve the things that are happening in your body. You know, the unconscious mind, know how to use the conscious mind with your language and the thinking and everything that you do, so that you can bring that spiritual side into the physical plane. And I think, and I think a lot of people are going, you know, they're off in the spiritual, and they just want to be in the spiritual, and they're ignoring that they're actually a human in the physical.
They're not grounded at all. And you know, I want to lift my vibration. Well, have a look at David Hawkins' book. If you want to lift your vibration, you feel those negative emotions and your vibration will lift.
Is that Power versus Force? Is that one?
Yes.
Great book. Absolutely. Oh, good. I'm so glad you added that, Jo. It's such important things. And I think, you know, it's realizing you can't have one without the other. You can't be all spiritual but not dealing with the human side of life, the emotional side of life.
We're here for this experience, so make the most of it.
Perfect. Perfect. So, Jo, what do you do for fun? What do you do when you're not helping people? Because and the reason why I always ask this, because I know often when we get in business, and I've been, you know, guilty of this myself, business can become all consuming sometimes, and it's hard to draw a line because, you know, you love what you do so much and so passionate about it and those kinds of things. But what do you do when you're not working in your business?
I'm a bit like you. It's become part of who I am to a point, but I love time with family and friends. Quite simple, really. When I did my list of things I do for fun, time with family and friends, traveling. So I went up to Darwin last year, met my daughter and her husband up there. They caravan, and I'll fly in and spend a week. This year we're doing Queensland, Fringe, Adelaide in autumn. I just love Fringe Festival and getting down to Adelaide. Got my own little house on, well, I pay the bank money every month and they let me live in it, so they kind of very nicely do that. But I've got half an acre, so 3 dogs, chickens, veggie garden. Just love getting out of my garden as well. I did have a list because it was good that you asked me that question, because what do I do for fun? A good Netflix binge every now and then. Find a good series and get stuck into that. That's my list. Fairly simple.
Amazing. Well, Jo-anne Cain, thank you so much for being a guest on the Coaching Circle. You are a wealth of information. You're always such a joyful, shining, you know, star in your own right, and you're doing amazing work in the world. So thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing what you do.
And thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.